This is my first time to buy the pre-built PC. The reason is not about the graphic card market is screwed up or anything, but this no GPU machine simply has a very good price in my opinion. With a 6-core 12-thread Ryzen 5 APU, the Lenovo IDEA Central 5 can be used as a home theater PC or a light workstation machine. Of course, you should always expect some hiccups when choosing these kinds of computers. Let's check it out. Let's take a look at the case. The front panel is made of plastic and the rest of the chassis is made of steel, so you can attach some fridge magnets to decorate if you want. The case volume is 14 liters, so it is slightly smaller than the meshlicious, which is 14.6. Sliding the front panel will hide the CD drive and reveal the front I/O, which has a USB-C port. The fan hose on the side panel is where we add fresh air to cool the system. An 80mm exhaust fan can be installed in the back to pull the hot air out, but Lenovo did not include any. I picked through the vent holes and I could see that we have an OEM cooler, which is very similar to the ones used in Dell pre-built PCs. And of course, it is. The cooler is screwed into the case. If you want to know more about it, you should definitely check out Gamer Nexus's videos. However, for this 65W CPU, I think it should be fine. Speaking about wattage, the PSU is in TFX form factor. The brand is Hunt Key, and this is an 80 plus bronze 260W power supply. In the back, we have one 3.5 headphone jack, one HDMI and one VGA port for display, four USB 2 connectors for peripherals and one Ethernet port. The front I/O consists of three USB 3.2 Gen 2, one of them is USB-C, one headphone mic combo, and a card reader. To access the internal components, we need to remove the two screws to slide the side panel out. Everything inside this computer just yells OEM, there is nothing fancy about it. The motherboard can actually have 4 RAM slots, but only 2 of them were soldered and usable. We have 2 SK Hynix RAM sticks, one 4GB and one 8GB DDR4 3200MHz memory. This still allows the system to run in dual channel, up to 4GB. I would suggest replacing the 4GB stick with another 8GB, a single search on eBay so that you can grab the same RAM for very cheap. The side mount holds the CD drive and one 3.5-inch 1TB hard drive. The hard drive is a 7200 RPM Western Digital Blue. We can also install a 2.5-inch SSD or hard drive on the side mount. However, the power supply does not have an extra plug for the drive, so you will need to replace the PSU in order to utilize this drive slot. We can also add a dedicated graphic card like a GTX 1050 Ti or 1650, which does not require PCI power from the PSU, and make sure to clean up the cable mess from the drives. To install a card, simply flip up the GPU holder. By watching Gamer Nexus's video about the Dell PC, I know that this is the heatsink for the chipset. Next to that, we have the Wi-Fi adapter and the M.2 NVMe SSD. What I like about Lenovo is that they care about the M.2 SSD temperature, as both their laptop and desktop have cooling solution for this component. The drive is 256GB, but you can upgrade to a larger and better SSD. Just make sure that it needs to be an NVMe drive and not SATA. To remove the side mount, we first need to take the front panel off. There are 3 latches that hold the panel to the case. There's a latches in front of the case. You need to lift it up and slightly pull it. There are 2 notches located at the top and bottom of the case. Just need to get them out of the holes and the side mount will come out. With the front panel removed, if you saw the Dell XPS PC, you will see the similarity of the front I/O. They are actually built into the motherboard and protrude outward, so the motherboard is not in a rectangular shape. Another 80mm fan can be installed in the front to intake fresh air, but I am unsure how much air it can suck in through the vent at the bottom of the front panel. That's a walkthrough of the case and its internal system. I think it's time to turn it on. Normally, I would do a fresh window install to get rid of the pre-installed bloatware, but I was curious about how much trash we got in the stock Windows. Well, there's not much. We have a few Lenovo softwares and Realtek audio, which is very light. The heaviest program is McAfee, and you can see it is advertising on my screen. To get rid of them, a fresh Windows 10 will do the trick. You need an 8GB USB and download the Media Creation tool from Microsoft to create a bootable USB drive. The Windows 10 version coming with the PC was 20H2. By completely wiping it out, we can upgrade to the latest 21H1 build. Before starting the installation, I made sure to completely format both the SSD and the HDD, then chose the 256GB SSD as a target drive for Windows. One thing I want to remind is, do not log into your Wi-Fi during the installation to avoid Windows 10 from downloading all the pre-built trash. You can connect to your Wi-Fi once you can see the desktop and open the web browser. However, we can't avoid the bloatware coming from Windows 10 itself, so go ahead and remove as many as possible. Don't forget to format the 1TB hard drive, are partitioned into 2 smaller drives for storage, and finally, download the Lenovo BIOS and update. It is a bit difficult to find, so I will have the link in the description. We can now check out the BIOS. To enter, when the system starts, press F1. When I said checking, I meant we could only check around. There are very limited functionality for tech-savvy people to mess around like CPU overclocking or RAM tweaking, and for non-tech users, all the essential configurations were enabled out of the box. Lenovo also turned on TPM 2.0 by default, which is required for Windows 11 installation in the future, and this was the only thing in the BIOS that I wanted to check. I also want to talk a bit about the HDMI port of this PC. It uses HDMI 1.4b, and when I connected to my ASUS HE17 monitor, I could get 240Hz display out of the box. It was very surprising because I thought that HDMI 1.4 is limited to 120Hz at 1080p, so this monitor and the PC is a good combination for some online video games. So, it's time to test out some gaming performance. I connected the PC to a capture card and recorded the footage via a second computer, so there was no performance loss. First is my most favorite Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed bruh. The game is quite old, but it still looks amazing. Before playing, we need to tap out and open Task Manager, go to Details, set Affinity, and pick the first 2 CPU threads. After clicking OK, enable all the back and we can eliminate all the random stutterers in this game. Even my 3090 PC suffers from this bug, so every time you start a game, do this and we can solve the issue.
All pork be slaughtered and eaten as soon as possible.
Please, God, just let me live!
Fire in Sparione.
Get out of here!
All lay priests are to die.
For graphic settings, everything is maxed out at 1080p. If you want to bring back your memory with this game, which is the best one in the trilogy in my opinion, it is totally doable with the Ryzen 4000 APU. Currently, I am at one of the most crowded area in the game and we constantly stay above 60 FPS. While the GPU usage is high, the CPU usage stays very low, so even if I have to face many enemies, there would be no problemo.
My God! Someone get the gun! There's a killer loose!
Next is Grand Theft Auto 5 again. I kept all the settings at low and the resolution is 900p. The game was released in 2013 but I feel like it never gets old, maybe due to its beautiful graphics and interesting story. GTA 5 is still one of the most popular games at the moment due to Rockstar's milking strategy, so I think it is still worth benchmarking.
No! Motherfuckers! I'm standing here! Finish me! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! You fucking cocksuckers! Come on!
With the graphic settings I chose, you can see that the frame rate remained above 60 despite multiple NPCs and an explosion. I drove around Los Santos and the FPS hover between 60 and 80, so there are still some headroom if you want to increase some graphic quality. 900p is perfect, so I don't really recommend 1080p.
I'm gonna be one reluctant motherfucker giving this up.
Man, there's enough bad credit going around, homie. It's like it's a...
Now we step up to something harder, The Witcher 3, the best game of the last decade in my book. I remember the first time I played it and got a bad ending. It screwed up my mood for a whole week. Anyway, All the settings are low and we have to stick with 720p to maintain above 50 fps. When I switched to 900p, the frame rate went down to 30 fps, so I highly recommend grabbing a dedicated GPU for the game, which will give you a better experience. But just grab the game first because when on sale, it only costs $15 for all the DLC, or you can just watch the game as a movie on my channel. The last one in the list is Metro Exodus. I admit that I completed this game first, then went back to finish 2033 and Last Light after. Besides a good story, the graphics of the game is also very intensive. We are using 720p with the lowest settings and we can only get around 30 fps. For a first-person shooter game, I don't recommend playing with this frame rate. It is not only bad for your eyes, but also ruins your fun time. I am playing one of the two DLCs, so the world is very limited, but the main game has more open world maps, which will definitely tank the performance even more. During gaming, you can see the temperature of the CPU being very cool, so let's hear the noise of the system during idle. What we are hearing is the noise from the power supply. The fan spins constantly even at low load, and it is very audible. Because this thing runs surprisingly cool, I decided to run Prime 95 for 15 minutes. If you don't know, Prime 95 is the most intensive CPU stress testing tool. This temperature is very good, so I don't think the OEM cooler deserves the hate. I think it is more suitable with an i5 or a Ryzen 5. I am curious about how this cooler works with a Ryzen 7 4700G model, so if you own or have the information about that, please let me know in the comment. So that is pretty much all I want to show you about a Lenovo IdeaCenter 5 with a Ryzen 5 4600G. I think the PC is good enough for daily usage and some light gaming. You can also use this PC for video editing with software like Premiere Pro or After Effects. The 6-core 12-thread Ryzen 5 and its integrated GPU can accelerate the workflow and rendering process. There are room for upgrade, but it is not possible at the moment due to the OEM power supply. If you are interested in this PC, I have the links in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.